Democrats now defending Joe Biden amid claims of misconduct. The DNC Chair Tom Perez says sexual assault allegations from a former Senate aide would have surfaced during Biden's vetting process for vice president. He compared calls for an investigation into Biden to Hillary Clinton's private email server, saying, quote unquote, there's nothing there. This just comes days after the presumptive Democratic presidential nominee denied the accusation publicly and called on the Senate and the National Archives to release any complaint by the former staffer against him. Joining us now is the former Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz, of course, a Fox News contributor. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
The DNC chair says there's nothing to see here. It's just like Hillary Clinton's email server. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we would see more of what Hillary Clinton did if she didn't use BleachBit and destroy the thing, even though it was under a subpoena, something that I was keen to get after. But nevertheless, this is a very credible allegation. And what it's exposing above and beyond the actual allegation itself is the incredible hypocrisy by the media. There were some 24+ interviews that Joe Biden did. They didn't even ask him a single question. That was a terrible embarrassment. The whole Me Too movement and every woman is supposed to be believed, that is out the door. It's exposed how bad that has been. And then given a couple of weeks heads up, I think Joe Biden created more problems than he solved by doing that interview.
Well, and it's interesting because we mentioned how there are various Democrats, as you just referred to, even though they went after Justice Kavanaugh, now they're defending Joe Biden. But there are some on the left who are not necessarily defending the former vice president. A prominent voice on the left, New York Times op-ed piece, Elizabeth Brunig, basically says Democrats, it's time to consider a plan B. This is brand new this morning. Tara Reade's allegations against Joe Biden demand action, she writes. Sexual assault is a crime unlike any other. Its hideous uniqueness is often manifest in the ways its victims cope. Cavalier dismissal of Miss Reade's story therefore runs the risk of advancing misconceptions about sexual assault and its aftermath. She goes on to write, this is collateral damage that Democrats who have spent the last few years championing the Me Too movement should be loath to incur. So when an op-ed writer in the New York Times does this, does she just come up with this on her own, or are there prominent Democrats behind the scenes who are getting nervous and are starting to push a plan B?
I think there are prominent Democrats behind the scenes that know that Joe Biden's a problem. He did not handle it well. I thought when Mika Brzezinski did that interview on MSNBC, it was a fair interview. She asked good questions, but Joe Biden couldn't handle those questions. He couldn't answer why he would open up the National Archives, but not open up the documents that are there at the University of Delaware. He totally fumbled that and should have seen that coming. And I got to tell you, nobody understands better than Democrats that Joe Biden is not the smoothest character in terms of being able to campaign, answer questions, and be nimble enough. And I would also say to Tom Perez, many of the things that you can see on video with Joe Biden happened after he became the vice president of the United States. Just roll the tape and watch this. Look at what Amy Lapos said, a staffer for Congressman Jim Hines at an event in 2009. It surfaced in the Hartford Courant in April of 2019 in her comments about what Joe Biden did to her. These stories, I think Democrats know, are going to keep coming.
I want to get to General Michael Flynn, but very briefly, what would be a plan B? Do you think the DNC can do something at this late date and put in another candidate?
Hey, they have gone through this process and have Joe Biden, but I think a lot of Democrats are having buyer's remorse because, Ed, I don't think there's anybody in the country that wakes up and says, boy, if only Joe Biden was the president. I just don't think that's happening.
I mentioned General Flynn. Trey Gowdy, your old colleague, was on with Maria Bartiromo yesterday. Here's what he said.
Peter Strzok seems more interested in setting up an American general than he is figuring out what the Russian generals were doing to this country. They send 2 agents over there without informing the White House, without informing the Department of Justice, and they wanted to set him up. That is not the FBI that this country needs. We need an FBI that we can trust. And what I read in these notes is not the FBI I used to work with.
In 30 seconds, how do we fix all this?
It really depends on Attorney General Barr and Mr. Durham and what they find. And I do worry that the current FBI director, Director Wray, does not have the strength after 2 years to fundamentally fix this and give the American people confidence that justice plays out within the FBI. That's the deepest concern.
A lot of people watching. Jason Chaffetz, thank you.